Last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
Hey, welcome back to the channel. So today, our Prime Minister met with the orange guy at the Clown House, White House. And let's be honest, no one expected that meeting to be productive. You can't reason with a man-child who's just there to hear himself talk. Still, credit to Mark Carney for showing more patience than most of us could. We've got a few clips breaking down what went down and how messy it really got. I guess a positive is that it didn't get Zelensky messy, and JD Vance kept his mouth shut. If you're new here and find this content helpful, a like and subscribe really helps us out. Let's get into it.
Okay, the failed artist to dictator pipeline needs to be studied more.
I'm a very artistic person.
You don't see how stupid he sounded today in the Oval Office talking about borders. It's clear you didn't pass a civics or a geography class.
When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country.
Orange Julius Caesar doesn't seem to get that it wasn't some dude named Big Balls who drew that line. These three total losers who signed it on behalf of the United States, Benjamin Franklin, John Jay, John Adams, like these aren't people we should ever have trusted to do anything on behalf of the United States.
So today, the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, met with Trump in the White House. First of all, why any smart, decent, good leader would meet with Trump, I have no frigging idea. Why would you want to meet with this clown? And of course, when he meets with him, what does this clown say or bring up again is the Canada being the 51st state. Yeah, Canada wants to be a part of this country. The United States 2025. They want to be a part of this? I don't think so. It's the other way around. How many states would love to leave here and join Canada, be part of Canada? That's more realistic. The other way around is preposterous. So why any leader, any good, decent leader would meet with this clown in the White House? I don't get it.
Mark Carney, Canada's new Prime Minister, was meeting with Donald Trump in the Oval Office today. And like classic Don, he starts talking about annexing Canada, making it the 51st state, everything else. In fact, he went on a tirade right before Mark Carney arrived on Truth Social, talking about the $200 billion deficit, everything else. Let me show you. So you can see here, he goes through his whole thing saying about how Canada needs the United States more than the United States needs Canada, and that he's going to make sure he talks to Mark Carney about this. Well, Mark Carney essentially told Trump, shut up about it. It's never going to happen. And he put it in terms that his tiny little demented mind can understand, saying, there's some places, as you know, in real estate that are not for sale, that will never be for sale, and Canada isn't. So let's work to build a partnership like we have in the past that strengthens both of us. Now, throughout Mark Carney talking, Donald Trump continued to make quips about annexing Canada, about making Canada a 51st state, what have you. But Mark Carney was having none of it and continued to shut Donald Trump down. Once again, embarrassing Donald Trump in his own Oval Office before the International Press Corps.
In real estate, there are certain places that are not for sale and will never be for sale. Canada is one of them. And that is the exact words Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney met Donald Trump and told it to his face that Canada is not for sale and will never be for sale because he, Mark Carney, met with the owners of that land, of that house, Canada, the Canadian citizen who gave him the mandate to go and tell Trump that Canada is not for sale and will never be for sale. Hey! Canada will never be for sale. Point blank. That's what Mark Carney delivered to Trump. Big blow, big blow, big blow.
And there would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But I do feel it's much better for Canada. But we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway, because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem.
After watching this press conference Donald Trump has just had with the Prime Minister of Canada, I have a lot, and I do mean a lot, of concerns about his mental health. First, there's this exchange between him and the Prime Minister about whether or not Canada is for sale.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
Having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
True. And they have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, they were low and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
So after getting brutally taken down right there by the Prime Minister, once again, it had to go down about Canada being the 51st state.
If I may, respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state. Secondly, we are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved. And this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here, to have those discussions, and that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation, but we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada, and we put tariffs on cars from Canada, and at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of, past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically. I assume they can. I will tell you that Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, so why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking we want to make them ourselves. I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said, that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but I understand his answer. But no, it's hard to justify subsidizing Canada to the tune of maybe $200 billion a year. We protect Canada militarily, and we always will. We're going to, that's not a money thing. But we always will. But, it's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion a year, or whatever the number might be? It's a very substantial number.
Or whatever the number might be. again, he's just rambling about a bunch of nonsense as he's getting brutally taken down by the Prime Minister of Canada.